welcome to Wine Down, the podcast where we talk wine and everything that goes with it. Today we're talking beer with Tim Golden. Hello, thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me.
The Village.
Yes.
Tell us about it.
So Village Bottle Shop and Tasting Room is a beer-centric retail store and what we call a beer cafe. So it's kind of split into two parts. Half of it's a retail store, so you can come in and buy beer and go. And the other half is our beer cafe. So we have 18 rotating taps, a bunch of wines on draft. And what we do is source and curate sort of the best beers in the world to bring to Honolulu.
Wow.
Fully agreed.
Okay. Nice.
Thirsty?
Why
Very
haven't
much.
you been there?
Cool. Figaro?
Yeah.
Is there a proper way to pour beer?
No.
Cool.
I mean, as long as it doesn't overflow, right?
I like that answer.
So is it okay to have like a thick layer?
You should, yeah.
Oh,
I think that's
okay.
appropriate. In Belgium and in Germany, if you don't have a good foamy head, it's not considered a good pour. It's partly aesthetic, right? It just looks good.
Sorry.
So you have a contrast of colors, but it's also, it serves a purpose. When you're pouring out a beer like that, you're releasing the carbon dioxide out of it.
Oh.
So that carbon dioxide is going to take the aroma and shove it up into your face. And as you probably learned with Chris, like a lot of your taste revolves around your smell. Mm-hmm. So if you're drinking out of a can or a bottle, you can't smell anything, right? Because it's just in your mouth. But pouring a beer out into a glass, you're gonna allow it to release aroma. It also releases a lot of carbon dioxide. So instead of all that CO2 going into your gut, it's actually getting released right now. So you're bringing down some of the CO2 volumes, a little less bubbles in your stomach.
That goes to show that I've had this whole beer thing wrong because I've always tilted the glass.
Yeah.
Like,
You can do that too.
oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh,
Depends
you're a no-head kind of girl.
You know what? Beer is just not my forte, but hey, fake it till you make it, baby.
Yeah.
Here we
That's
go.
kind of you to think that they actually learn things on the show, Tim. That's really sweet.
Well, this is kind of cool because we have a wine expert and a beer expert in the same place.
Yeah.
So we get to learn about both.
I really do think, I mean, it's so weird how people try to like separate the two, right? Like, oh, do you drink wine, beer, and spirits? And the answer is like,
Yes, yes, and yes.
Like, of course, I think of it like surfers and bodyboarders. Like, why is there, or like stand-up paddlers, like why is there friction between these groups? Like, it all stems from the love of the ocean. And in our case, it all stems from like love of getting
Alcohol.
drunk. I mean, there's more than that, right? There's like sharing and there's community, and you often enjoy it around food, but yeah, it's all fun. I'm a huge fan of Village, and I drink more beer than I drink wine. This show should be called like Beer and, this particular show, because I didn't bring wine. So we're drinking right now Cascade, one of my favorite sour breweries in America out of Portland. Started in the late 90s, truly as like a super craft sour beer thing. 10 barrels I think they started with, and now they're considered, I mean, it's state of the art there now. It's amazing.
Come on, Moani. Come on, you can do
Just
it.
do it.
She's like, I don't drink beer.
You can't cheers and not drink.
Okay, cheers.
How come yours is a different color?
I ate asparagus. No.
Maybe the first pour.
Stop.
No,
Oh, you
wow,
poured the vine.
Cut. No. Yeah, it's a different beer. So when I opened this one, it foamed up really quickly.
Yeah.
Can you explain that? Like why certain beers?
Yeah, I mean, that one it had probably residual sugars in it, so as it's in the bottle, it's still fermenting.
I see.
So when you opened it, that carbonation in it is really strong, so it's gonna want to come out. So if you don't pour it quickly, you're gonna have a foam ball.
Foam ball. I like it. So the Cascade is a sour beer for sure, but there's a lot of wine elements that go with it. In your glass right now is Figaro, which is aged in Chardonnay barrels. There's a lot of, for instance, the vine is done using Gewürztraminer, which is a little more sweeter type of grape. But there's a lot of like beer and wine crossover. A lot of beer people doing like incorporating wine elements. What do you think about that? Like the new age of exploration and innovation. Is it too much at some
No,
point?
because I think it's been going on forever, right? I mean, if you think back, I mean, people were aging beer in barrels no different than they were aging wine in barrels, and that crossover has always been there. And then in Belgium, they were always just using whatever ingredients were available. So now in like the modern craft world, the American craft brewers are just finding new ways to experiment and do something new, right? And that's the nice thing. In America, there was no restrictions on what you could and couldn't do in beer. So when someone said, let's put figs in a beer and then throw it in wine barrels and let it sit for 2 years and see what it tastes like, you could do that in America when no one really cared. where in some other countries it's sort of taboo to do that just because there's so much tradition.
Right.
But you know,
I think it's so interesting, like how you say that in America, they do things a little
Anything
different.
goes.
Right.
Yeah.
Like you said with wine, we have
Same
the new
thing.
age and the old age, but in America, it's like the new age wine, right? Or new world. Sorry.
Yeah.
World.
New world.
They do learn
I
something,
learned
Tim.
something.
This is like Crown Papa
But
moment.
it's like America just messes with what everybody already made. You
Yeah.
know? So,
they take chances.
Is this your first
Yeah.
time trying sour beer?
Yes.
yeah, it's pretty darn
You mean
sour.
yes?
Yeah, it's acidic.
That's what I was
Yeah,
gonna
it's
say.
acidic.
It's acidic, but we're gonna have to hold it. We have to take a quick break. When we get back, we'll talk more beer with Tim. Rest easy with the new windows from Windows Hawaii, featuring Ali'i Extreme windows with their exclusive sound reduction and security package. Call 671-0808 today. Enjoy Andis Winery's new painted fields Cuvée Blanc featuring the sought-after Vermentino varietal, exclusively at 7-Eleven Hawaii.
Welcome back to Wine, and we're here with Tim talking about beer. Okay, so Mwani, I know you didn't quite like that one, but
Sour
let's.
beer, right? You love sour beer, right?
I've just never tried it. I think it's just an acquired taste. Like even when
Yeah.
you first smell it, you can actually really smell like a sweet, then sour, and then it's just very acidic.
Like historically, most beers were sour.
Yeah.
Like hops wasn't a thing, which is an antibacterial stuff. Like it prevents spoilage, which is essentially what sour beer is. But I feel like a lot of people in Hawaii like it because it's sort
Well,
of
it's like beer is like lihimoi, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
This is actual sour
like-
beer. It's like
I think if you know what
Yeah.
to if you know what to expect, it's a lot easier.
Oh.
And when
Right.
people tell you what you're gonna taste, then it becomes a little bit more acceptable. as you
Yeah.
t-
We
you
had
know,
no
if-
expectations.
Yeah, if you had no
Yeah.
expectation of what it is, and then you,
Goes out the door.
yeah,
Yeah.
and then you're all of a sudden like, whoa.
So when someone comes in, or you say you're doing a tasting, is there a certain way or like etiquette? I mean, I have no idea of anything about beer. So is there a way that it needs to be poured? You talk, sip.
Or cheers, you know how
Yeah.
people do like the clink clink
Yeah.
and the
Yeah.
fancy
No,
thing?
and I think that's the nice thing about beer is like it doesn't matter. It's what you want, how you want to enjoy it, where you want to enjoy it. It's easily accessible. Doesn't have to be this stigma around it where it's like if you're drinking an expensive bottle, like that bottle's, you know, it's a pretty bottle, it's a big bottle, it's not cheap just because the amount of time it takes to make, sort of like a wine, right? If it takes 3 years, it's going to cost a lot more to make. But at the end of the day, you drink it the way you want to enjoy it. You know, if you want to drink it out of the bottle, go ahead. But it tastes a lot better when you pour it out, and it's also not a beer that you're going to consume in like mass quantities.
So would you say like a beer? So would you say like the beer process and like wine making process are similar in how long it takes, or?
certain types of beers like that? The beer on the other side,
Can we go ahead and pour?
no, it's a faster beer. Yeah, go ahead. You know, this is a beer style that you're both going to be much more familiar with because it's basically a beer style that everybody in the world drinks. It's a light lager.
sorry.
This one just happens to be a German-made one, and
Nice.
probably one of the better ones in the world. But
It's like anything from Germany is good when it comes to beer.
yeah, and this is a beer that, again, like at the end of the day, brewers want to drink this style of beer. At the end of the day, winemakers want to drink this because it's light, it's refreshing. There's not a lot there, but it's still really good. And that's sometimes having something super simple is the best. That's all you want, right? You don't want to think too hard about just the pleasure of having a drink.
I mean, there's a reason
Right.
why I love to drink beer because like you do wine for a job.
Yeah.
I want beer flavored beer at the end of the day. Like winemakers say that it takes a lot of good beer to make a lot of good wine. You go to any winery, like what do you see in the fridge? Like macro cans, like Bud Coors Miller Lite. I swear it's
Like they,
Yeah.
they're
oh yeah.
Yeah.
while they're making wine.
Yeah.
Oh,
I mean, it's low alcohol. It's usually hot. They're doing a lot of work. They're sweaty. At the end of the shift, too, like when you talk about restaurants, what do you want to drink? I don't want like a shot of whiskey. I want
Something
mass
light,
quantities of beer.
Yeah, light
Light,
and refreshing,
refreshing,
right? I mean,
right.
it's
Like
the same
this.
thing if you're cruising in someone's like garage or at the park or somewhere, right? And you're just kind of, if it's a hot day, you want something light and refreshing. This just happens to be, you know, a smaller produced German beer, but it's the same kind of style that of all the others, just made differently a little bit.
So it's like high quality beer flavored beer.
Yeah, and that's what we always say. It's beer flavored beer. It's beer that tastes like beer. Because there's other beers that don't taste like beer.
Like these. Lihimoi.
Okay, yeah, that's what I'm used to tasting when I
Yeah.
taste beer. Yeah.
Should I pronounce this?
Yeah, we should have served this one first, guys. Like, let's catch them
This
off guard
reminds me of like
sour.
something that my dad would drink, or like me always like being around him and like going to smell his glass, like,
Yeah.
oh.
Yeah.
But it just reminds me of my dad.
So what are the popular beers that you think at Village that sells the most here in Hawaii?
For us, it's a slightly different audience. I mean, so we don't sell, like Chris said, the mass market macro lagers, just because it's just not our forte. But, you know, IPAs are still king, and that's still probably the #1 selling beer for us, both in retail and on draft. Hazy IPAs are the king of that. Just because they've just become so popular in the last 7 years, they're still hop forward, but they're not as bitter. And you get more flavor and aromatics out of them versus straight up bitterness. So those outsell everything else 2-1 easily. And
What made it so popular? Because that is like something that I hear everybody talking about. Like even my boyfriend and his friends, I'm like, cool, IP what?
Have you ever had an IPA?
Nope.
I haven't either. That sounds like
But
interesting.
they're
I
always like
thought-
talking about it, and I'm just like, I don't know what it is, but cool. I've heard it in so many conversations. with
Well, we're
guys.
gonna have to take a quick break, so we'll get back to that as
Okay.
soon as we get back from wine end.
Cheers.
120-day peace of mind guarantee exclusively at Inspiration Interiors. Inspiration will refund you the difference if you find a lower price on identical merchandise delivered in Hawaii. When the sun comes up, your bill goes down with Revolusun. Call 748-8888 or visit online at revolusun.com now. Hawaii's premier solar provider. So we left off talking about IPA, and I asked what made it all of a sudden like the whole craze 7 years ago. Like, what exactly is it that guys are like, I want an IPA?
Like that?
Yeah.
Did you bring an IPA?
Nope, on purpose.
That's what Tim thinks of IPAs.
No, I love them, and it's what I got into it. But I think 25 years ago or more, when kind of the original craft brewery movement started, it was just such a different flavor. People were used to drinking mass-produced macro lagers, and then all of a sudden the breweries started making these beers that were more hop forward. And 20, 25, 30 years ago, the IPAs were much more bitter and really abrasive, and I think people looked for that. They wanted something different. In the last 7 years, hazy IPAs or New England IPAs became really, really prominent, and that was where some brewers realized, if we changed how we use the hops and change what we do in the process, we can have a ton of flavor, and you get all these tropical fruit notes. It's like guava, strawberry, mango, pineapple. There's no fruit in these beers, but if you smell it, it smells like a fruit basket. And tropical fruit tends to be like the dominant, and it's all hops. But they're just doing it in a different process, and then you don't get all that bitterness. And then they use a lot of oats and wheat in the beer. So if you've had like a Hefeweizen before, you see how
I haven't, but I'm gonna nod.
So you know what a wheat beer is like cloudy, right? If you've seen people drinking a Hefeweizen, it's cloudy. That's sort of like the original hazy beer, and there's a ton of wheat in the beer, so it gives it a softer mouthfeel, and it kind of like they call it pillowy, so it's not prickly and on your tongue. Yeah, so it's soft, right? It's soft in your palate, and then all of a sudden you get all these, pineapple, mango, tangerine, all these flavors, but there's no fruit in these beers.
So have you been able to like go to different breweries here? Like, are there breweries here?
I've never heard of any.
Educate us, please.
Yeah, the craft brewing scene in Hawaii has grown tremendously over the last 15 years, and which is important because a place like Village, Bottle Shop, and Tasting Room wouldn't be able to exist without the local breweries, because it kind of builds a community and it builds an audience. So the local breweries have really in the last 7 years, Kakaʻako's been like a big heart of that, because you have Honolulu Beer Works, you have Aloha, you have Waikiki, you have Hanakoa. There's a new one called Lokahi opening up pretty close. Then you have Inu Island Ales in Kaniole, you have Lanikai, you have Beer Lab. They have multiple locations, and that's all on Oahu. And it sounds like a lot, but per capita and the amount of beer they're making, it's not a lot, and there's still a lot of room for growth. Then you have like Maui Brewing Company. You have another one on Maui called Kohola. I think Kauai has 2. Big Island has 3 or 4. And they're all making really good beers, and they all do kind of different things, which is you want variety, right? And so not every brewery's doing the exact same beers, and people like to jump around and do things.
Are you
That's
making your
great.
own beer? Or
No,
are you
we
making
don't.
it with anyone?
Maybe Lanai.
Yeah, we're working. We're definitely working on a sibling podcast.
We're gender neutral here.
Yeah.
It's a sibling
Really?
podcast.
Tell us more.
Yeah, called Cold One. So basically, it's about like what we're doing now, and the cool thing about beer is it's super approachable, and what it's always been, either whether it's here or anywhere else in the world, people just get together and hang out and have beers and have conversations and talk. And that's the focus of the show. And we can talk about beer, but it's really about other stuff going on. Kind of like this show where it's wine is the basis, but there's so much other stuff that you can talk. You just talk story.
Well, we rarely
We
talk
love
wine
that.
about
Yeah,
this on
exactly.
this show, Tim.
Well, I have to say that this smells really good.
I love chocolate. So tell us.
And it
what is
reminds
this?
me of those candies, like taffy almost, that you would, it's like in a
Oh.
silver. Is it like that?
Yeah.
Big sips.
So
Big sips?
the other one was
Big sips.
beer flavored beer. This is candy flavored beer, basically.
And what is it called?
What is the name of the candy that I'm thinking about?
Like almond joy or
toffee-
something.
No, it's
Mounds.
Mounds.
No, it's like
Almond Joy.
it gets
No,
stuck
no,
to
no,
your
no, no.
teeth.
I know.
Tootsie
No.
Roll, like not like
Oh.
a Tootsie Roll, but
Yeah.
it's like in that silver packaging.
I know what you're talking about.
I don't know. When we
Yeah.
come back from the break, I will have the name of that
Wanted to
candy,
figure
but
it
we're
out.
gonna shoot over to Tevis for the cocktail of the week. See you guys when we get back.
Thanks again, guys. Welcome back to today's cocktail of the week. Now, not gonna make a beer cocktail necessarily, but we are gonna make a cocktail made from another local type of brew. This is gonna be Paradise Ciders, obviously something made from apples, if you will. This is gonna be a mango flavored cider. They call it the Mango Days. This drink is gonna bring and sing true to local flavors all the way around, at least local flavors here in Hawaii. First thing we're gonna add is some local vodka. It's Pau vodka made on Maui. Super simple, probably the most simple drink that we'll be doing together. 1 ounce of vodka. We're gonna do a little bit of lime juice, add some tartness here, 1/4 ounce here, and a little bit of lilikor or passion fruit. 1/4 ounce is just perfect here. Right now I'm using fresh lilikoi, so it does already have a nice tartness to it. That's basically it. So now we're gonna shake this one up. So this drink named after a very famous local song here in Hawaii by Mana'o Company called Drop Baby Drop. Go on Spotify right now. If you haven't heard it, check it out. Now our glassware, we're gonna have rimmed with some lihimoi powder. Lihimoi essentially is a dried Asian plum. We dry it out here in Hawaii even further, kind of get it down to a powder, and that's gonna create a nice little tartness, saltiness, even a little bit of sweet, kind of hits all those flavors of the palate really nicely. Before we strain that out, add ice to our glass. So we're gonna strain this out, top it off with some Mango Days cider from Paradise Ciders. And our garnish, just following true to form, cracked seed shop type lihimoi mango. Drop baby drop. Cheers.
Thank you, Tevis, for the cocktail of the week. That looks amazing. Okay, so we're back. Did you think of that candy that you said that this tastes like?
Werther's.
You're welcome.
No, I'm gonna thank someone else for
I
that.
feel like I'm in a sitcom right now, seriously. Like, I've been
No,
saying
but
it the whole time.
It reminds me of like my tutu. She'd always have Werther's in her bag, and if you got it and it was like kind of sticky, it would stick to your teeth. That reminds like coconut, all like
Yeah.
That's like the old person joke, yeah? They like have the candy, they're like the where there's
Always.
candy. Yeah.
Totally.
Wait,
So flavorful.
Did we
though.
find a beer that you actually like?
I think so.
Really?
I think so.
Oh, you know if you drink that glass, you're gonna be bombed.
But
yeah.
Do you think more women like this because it's like sweeter?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's also a lot of guys drink it.
Oh, so this is like a what
It's
was
a pastry stout.
Pastry.
So basically, it's they take ingredients to an imperial stout or an imperial porter, like a dark beer,
Okay.
chocolate, coconut, vanilla. And then has toasted almonds,
Almond
and they
joking.
put copious amounts into the beer to get that flavor. That's why the flavors are so pronounced
They're
and so
so
sweet. Yeah, they're
strong.
so strong. It's also strong. It's almost 12% in alcohol.
Wow.
Yeah.
She's like, yeah.
So that's why. But
It's gonna be a great day.
Yeah.
Sorry, crew.
The following episodes are gonna
Yeah.
be fantastic.
the
gonna
amount,
go
of, the amount
downhill.
of ingredients they use in this is incredible. I mean, the amount of vanilla, pure vanilla they use in this to get those flavors is a ton. So these beers aren't normally cheap. They're also kind of a little more rare. They're harder to get, and people line up at breweries to get these type of beers just because they're made in limited quantities. Just because that's how you can't make a lot of it.
So is this like more of a heavy? It's a heavier.
It's a heavy beer.
Yeah,
Heavy beer.
high
Steady.
calorie. Are
Oh,
there
yeah.
any low calorie beers? Come on.
There's low calorie beers.
Oh, this is high
Well,
They're
calorie.
This is
not
high
fun
calorie,
though.
yeah.
They're not fun. You know, I was one of those people that like early on got into this type of style, and I was on a couple of like mailing lists for breweries that I don't want to speak ill of, but like, you know, I mean, it's a thing. People, you know, sign up. They're on mailing
There's like
lists.
beer clubs.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, and people will wait in line because there's just limited amounts of it. So if you want it, you have to go to the brewery the day they release it. And if you're in line and you're one of the first 500 people or whatever, you get it. If not, and there's a whole secondary trading market where people will have secondary apps and online systems where they trade beers or purchase beers on the secondary market for inflated prices.
Do you do any trading like
No.
within the village? No.
Never.
Never.
Well, at Village, no, because we're strictly a retail shop. But me personally, I've never done it. It's just not, I don't know, not my thing.
Beer flavored beer.
Beer flavored beer.
I
So,
like this.
Yeah.
This is
Of
really
course you do.
cool.
Sweet stuff.
I mean, it's
just
basically
wish-
like a chocolate cake.
Yeah,
Yes.
exactly.
Yeah.
I just wish it was low calorie because I could just tank this whole thing. It'd be really bad.
Well,
The rest of the day is gonna be
For the day.
amazing.
Yeah.
And then I'm just gonna be like, hey.
Yeah.
So how much would say these go for?
So the can, the 12-ounce can, is $10.
Okay.
Oh.
Yeah, but it's a 12% beer, and the reason why the pastry styles are so expensive is because the amount of pure vanilla they use, and vanilla beans $200 and something a pound, and they use pounds of vanilla bean that go into it. So the cost of making these beers is really high. Whereas something like the Schönrammer, the Helles, is $5 a bottle. You know,
Tim, tell us where our audience can find you real quick.
Sure.
Like on Instagram or websites.
Yeah. Well, you can find us at Village Bottle Shop and Tasting Room in Kakaʻako. We're in the Salt Complex. We're right across from Moku and Arvo. You can follow us at Village Beer on Instagram. So that's where we're most active, is on Instagram. So it's just at Village Beer. And basically, you know, every beer that we get in that's new, we post about it, we talk about it. And it ranges in style. You know, we go from, you know, something like this that's super trendy and popular to something like the Schönrammer isn't. But it's just something that people love. It goes, like, going back to, it's the type of beer that people want to drink.
Well, we're going to actually continue this on our YouTube extended version. So go ahead and check us out. Follow us, like, comment, and we'll see you there.
Thanks, Tim.
Thanks,
Cheers.
Sid. Cheers.
Cheers. All right, welcome back to our YouTube extended version. Thank you for watching. Be sure to tell your friends, hit the subscribe button, and also leave a comment down below. All right, so I guess we should just pick up. We kind of had to refrain from talking because there was more
much
questions
information.
being asked. But so Chris is a sommelier.
Loosely.
Okay.
The what?
What? You're a master.
Cicerone is basically somewhat the loosely equivalent. And it's basically a group of people formed a company at some point 10 years ago, and they realized that the beer world was becoming complicated and diverse, and they wanted to have sort of a certification board, somewhat to how the sommelier board was formed. And it's a series of tests, pretty much modeled much like after the sommelier
It
exams.
like mirrors it almost exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
Like
I mean,
level-wise and
So
They
you
had
could
a- they
taste
had a
any
blueprint.
beer and know exactly the name of it?
No, because beer's a lot different, because so like with, you know, we're drinking this, right? And they where it's made, it could be made anywhere in the world, right? And it doesn't really reflect too much on the terroir or the grape. That stuff doesn't matter. This is ingredients that they've purchased from all over the world. It's made in San Diego, but the malt might have come from Canada. The vanilla might have come from Madagascar. The
Oh,
almonds
wow.
probably came from Northern California. So It's less about that and more about understanding beer styles, the history of certain beer styles. Off flavors is a big one, you know, because there are a lot of problems with, you know, especially in draft where beer can be altered by, you know, infections and whatnot, and beer's not going to taste as good, right? So that's sort of the focus on it versus with the sommeliers, it's really knowing the place of the wine and all of that. So it can get a lot more complicated in the sommelier world, whereas a beer, I don't know. You know, so beer's not as much terroir based. There are some beers that can be where so like the Schönrammer, that is a lot of terroir in there because basically that brewer in Bavaria only sources his malt from one farm, his hops come from one farm, and they will vary how they use it based on the growing season because every year it's an agricultural product, right? So the barley's growing, but one year might be rainier than the other. The hops are growing, but one hill might produce hops that are a little more spicier than another hill, and it's how they use that in ratio. But that's, you know, that's a unique case. Most beer, the products it's a commodity, right? You're buying barley. Local breweries here, you know, they want to brew a beer with European malt. They're buying malt that was grown in Germany, malted in Germany, and then shipped halfway around
So
the world.
basically, there's just a lot of
Experimentation.
experimentation, trial, error, you name it. So okay, since this is my favorite beer,
I really want to see the after effects.
let's go.
It's gonna be amazing.
Please don't. We have a couple more.
Yeah, we're only halfway through the
shooting.
day.
Do you know? So like we're all sharing this
One
12 ounce
can.
thing.
One.
That's
okay.
great.
And
But that is sold just by the can.
Individually,
Individually.
yeah.
Okay.
I mean, before, I mean, that's in a 12-ounce can, which the smaller size is great. But, you know, when Chris was talking about some of the beer clubs he was in before, you would buy that same style of beer in a 750 ml, which is almost 26 ounces.
I was gonna say, why
And
does it come
is
in a
the
can?
pricing different?
Yeah, so your pricing would be exponentially higher, right?
Oh.
The canning's just a lot easier. The bottles had a higher dollar appeal. You know, it's prettier. You're selling like a high-end product.
romantic. It's like
Yeah.
wine.
But really, the liquid inside is the exact same. So they used to the cost and the price once they started. Some breweries are putting them in cans, plummeted because the raw material to put in a can, it's a lot easier. It's cheaper to ship. You can fit more cans per case on a pallet. Versus a big bottle like that. That bottle's expensive. The bottle's heavy. It's expensive to ship.
You have to pack it.
So you're paying for the visual aesthetic of the fancy bottle, but what's inside is the same thing.
Yeah.
all-
How do you
that's
feel about
exactly like wine.
How do you feel about canned wine? Like, no, yes,
Or boxed
That's a
wine.
great question. You know, time and place for everything. Yeah, wine is snobby enough as it is. Like, why put, you know, anything down? I was the person that stopped the bag in college. You know, I totally get like drinking box wine and whatever. If I didn't do that, like it wouldn't lead me to be able to get paid drinking and talking about this kind of stuff for sure.
Beer has the same sort of. There's people who won't drink beer out of a can or won't buy beer that's in a can. They still will insist on bottles, and even in Germany and Belgium, you can't. They can beers there, but it's all for export. But if you're in Germany and Belgium, like it's really just a cheap beer that is put in cans. So if you go in Belgium, like Jupiler is in cans. That's sort of like the Bud Light of Belgium, and it's, you know, you can buy a lot of it. But then the better the beer quality gets, it starts going in the bottles, and you're not going to see it. But that's just culturally, that's what they want. They want it in bottles, you know.
I love beer in cans.
Yeah, it's great.
Like,
Really?
Orion, like we do like. Yeah, somebody told me to only buy it in cans, and we did blind taste tests for. I mean, it's such a cheap Okinawan beer, whatever. You have it at the izakayas, but it really does, like it helps protect it from light. It seems fresher for some reason. I don't know.
They seal better. I mean, you still have a cap on top of the bottle, and that cap, you know, it still can let oxygen in, whereas a can, it's, you know, it's completely opaque. Light can't get in because light will, even on brown bottles, like eventually if it's it gets in, right? Cans chill faster too. So if you want something to get colder faster, I mean, it's less mass to go through to get the cold through, and then it's cheaper to ship.
Wait, so brown bottles, what's What's the difference? Because in Hawaii, we know green bottles.
Green
Yeah.
bottle, bottles, tiny.
So brown bottles versus green
you.
bottles, there's a difference when it comes to shipping temperature?
It's all about light permeability versus clear bottles too, right? So it's all because of the hops. Hops have if hops get exposed to sunlight, there's a chemical reaction that happens that will then produce. You've heard the word like skunky beer, and so skunky beer is basically like a reaction of
Smells
light.
like a skunk.
Yeah, it starts to get like a really rancid aroma, but that's because light has hit the hop compounds and particles in the beer, and all of a sudden it produces like a really off
People
flavor.
say like weed a little bit too.
Yeah.
No?
So do they
Like,
just throw
yeah.
the beer
No,
away?
Yeah, like a little.
It gets a little like rancid, danky.
That's why. So hops is actually a cousin of weed. Like hops and cannabis are related genetically.
Genetically.
So that's why Heineken is so pop.
No,
Yeah, I mean that's
I
one of
don't
those
know.
things where like
I think it's more of like a
it does feel like
local.
Heineken's weird because Heineken in America, it had green bottles, right? And it had been coming into the country for so long, and then it had been getting skunky. But Americans had been so used to like that's the flavor of Heineken that when Heineken in the Netherlands, they realized that this isn't how it's supposed to taste, because if you go there, it doesn't have that same taste. But then they changed it so that when it came to America, it didn't have that skunkiness,
Oh, okay.
and American drinkers didn't like it anymore because they were so used to that off flavor that is like, this is how Heineken is supposed to taste. So now what they did was like that Heineken for export ended up being made that way
Skunky,
with
on
that
purpose.
flavor on purpose. Whereas if you go, that's why people say,
That's
it's like,
crazy.
well, if you go to Amsterdam and you drink Heineken there, it doesn't taste the same. It's like, no, it doesn't taste the same on purpose. But it's also like you drink Corona in a clear bottle, there's a thing that they can do where it prevents the light struck. So they put there's a chemical compound they can put in there where then all of a sudden your beer's not getting light struck. So that's why you can have a clear bottle and Corona, it doesn't have that skunkiness.
When's the last time you drank a Corona?
I like Modelo better.
That's
When was the
that's
last
not
time
the
you
question.
drank a Corona?
Probably 7 years ago.
No way.
Yeah.
That was my college drink.
Really?
That with the
It was.
lime. That was, yeah.
I had a
Yeah.
Tecate like 2
I don't
weekends
know
ago.
Yeah.
What is that?
Tecate? It's another Mexican beer.
Do you ever drink like macro beers?
Yeah.
Things like that? Yeah.
Yeah, Tecate. I like them. I like Mexican lagers.
Why do you like Mexican lagers? Like, what's different?
They're good. They're
Cheap.
refreshing. They're cheap. You know, like you can buy a 12-pack of Modelo pretty cheap. It's pretty good. I mean, there's a time. I don't know. The same thing, the snobbery, right? It's like I don't care. Like if someone
Yeah.
wants to drink Coors Light, they drink Coors Light. I don't care. It's like you hand me a Coors Light. It's a hot day and it's cold. I'll drink it. You know, it's refreshing. I prefer like a Modelo or Tecate or something. I have preferences, but it's also, I mean, it is what it is.
It's funny you
right?
mentioned Coors Light because that's like the only thing my dad drank. It was I still have
Yeah.
like the bottle cap. It was the first beer that I drank with him legally, but like brand loyalty, like the old
Oh,
school
yeah.
guys was like, no, I only drink Bud Light. Well,
Why?
Do you know
Yeah.
the difference? Like, could you taste the difference? Or I don't know. Is that something that you feel change now with like the younger
Yeah.
group coming in?
There's no brand loyalty now.
So it's harder to stock and harder to.
Yeah, well, because people, they're more adventurous, right? So they want to try different things. So they see that come in and that come in and that come in. And they don't care what brewery it's from. They might have breweries that they don't prefer, that they say, oh, I've tried a bunch of things from that brewery. Never really did it for me. But for the most part, it's not like they're buying Sierra Nevada every week. You know,
Yeah.
whereas before, like dads used to always buy Miller Lite. They only drank Miller Lite,
Yeah.
right? Or
Yeah.
like, you know, Corona or whatever. But now they might always have their fallbacks. So Sierra Nevada, they know like, oh, that everything they make's good. So maybe if I don't know what to buy, I'm just getting a 6-pack of Sierra Nevada. But it's not like it's the only thing they buy. They want the variety. They want to go in and go, oh, this is new, that's new, that's new. Which is great, but it's also tough for a lot of breweries because then they don't have that consistent
Stream of income.
stream
right?
of income. So
Yeah.
they're always having to make new beers. And that's why like at Village, there's so many new beers coming in all the time. And that's just a function of the industry now. It's like they have to be constantly making new beers, changing the labels, changing the names. I
How
don't
do
know.
you stay up with trends? Like, how do
I
you keep
know.
up?
I'm just listening to you.
So
Like,
I was
how
a-
do you
I was a
keep?
Tim Golden fan for like a very long time. Like this guy like paved the way for. He was one of the early influencers for Hawaii as far as beer culture goes. Had a blog that I used to follow religiously. Told us where the cool beers were going to be dropping and all that kind of stuff. It really was like something that all the alcoholics look forward to. Yeah, but so he was the guy on the cusp of all the cool news and all the goings on in the industry.
It's a lot of emails and texts. That's all. I mean, and there's just a lot of stuff going on. So just staying up with what's coming out, when, where the trends are. Like the pastry styles. Like they're super popular
I
right
had
now.
no idea that
Yeah.
pastry style was a thing in beer.
It's huge right now.
I didn't
we
know you
got
were a nurse.
educated.
Game changer right here.
No.
Yeah.
Well,
know you were a
thank you
nurse.
so much for being a part of this. Be sure to follow us on at Wine and Podcast. Also, be sure to hit the subscribe button, tell your friends, leave a comment. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Tim.
Thanks.
Cheers.
Tim.
Cheers.
Cheers.
And visit Village.
Yeah,
Village.
Village.
Yes.
They have pastry beer.
And it's really good.